Hello, my name is Monica Price, and it's wonderful to you to join me this evening. And I'm joined from a very special guest today, all the way from Los Angeles. No wonder that you're thinking who I am and who this person is that's joined me today. Well, it's the only wonderful man that is, Tom Dreesen. Now, if you don't know Tom, you're going to in a minute after this interview. Tom is a legend in his own right. He's performed with Frank Sinatra for 14 years. In fact, he was the opening act for Frank Sinatra. He's a very well-known comedian. He's a writer. There isn't anything really this man hasn't done. So I'm delighted for him to join me this evening. So hi, Tom.
Monica, hello from across the pond, as they say.
Oh, so lovely for you to join me. Thank you so much.
I haven't been to, over to London in a long time. I used to perform on a show there called the Des O'Connor Show. It was a chat show.
Oh, and yes. We love Des O'Connor over here. Yes.
I was the first American comedian they used on that show. And I just fell in love with London when I was there. I had so many good times there. I went there twice to do the Des O'Connor Show, But I also, have gone back there since. Right? It's just, I had such good friends there. And I have a real good buddy I play golf with every day, Vinnie Jones. I don't know if you're familiar with him.
Yes. Oh, yes. Vinnie's a legend over here. Yes, we love Vinnie Jones. So, and you play golf. I mean, I was going to say, Tom, there's so much we can talk about, but you're a really avid golf player, aren't you?
Yeah, I caddied as a boy. I grew up very poor, and I caddied as a boy to help feed my brothers and sisters. And I fell in love with the game. And then through the years, I played in a lot of celebrity golf tournaments. And for years, I was on a tour called the Celebrity Players Tour. It's basketball, baseball, football, hockey, tennis, and show business people that were 10 handicap or below. So it was Major League Baseball players, Hall of Famers, basketball players. And in show business, it was me, Smokey Robinson, Frankie Avalon, people like that, Eddie Marinaro. And so we played 12 cities a year. And then I played in the Bob Hope Classic every year. I was the master of ceremonies for Bob Hope. And I performed. And then I also play in the AT&T at Pebble Beach for Clint Eastwood and perform at that function every year. So yeah, I'm an avid golfer. And Vinnie Jones, by the way, takes my money every time I play with him.
Is there anybody that you don't know, Tom? I mean, Tom, how long has your career been? When did you start? What age were you?
This is my 51st year in show business. And what's hard to believe, I'm 39 years old. So
you only look 25, Tom. What's going on? I don't know.
I started out the most unusual way. I never thought I'd be in show business. It was the furthest thing from my mind. I never thought I'd be in this business. I came out of the service. I was in the Navy. And I joined a civic group called the JCs, the Junior Chamber of Commerce. And they did civic projects, working on the community problems and then solving the problems by doing some kind of community action, So you learned how to serve on a committee, chair a committee, how to serve on subcommittees, and a lot of leadership training. And we attacked the problems of the community. And one of the problems in those days were drug use in our youth. And so I wrote a drug education program teaching grade school children the ills of drug abuse with humor, a concept I had of making the kids laugh, playing music, and then planting the seeds of the ills of drug abuse. Working with me on this project, a young black man joined the chapter in Chicago, where I was from, and he worked with me on a project, a young black man named Tim Reed, and we went in the classroom, and the children loved us. We used to play off of one another, make each other laugh, and all that. This was 1969. And one day, a little 8th grade girl, the program became very successful, and one day, a little 8th grade girl said, "You guys are so funny, you ought to become a comedy team." And the thought of a black-white comedy team intrigued us because no one had ever done that before. So we started writing what we thought was material, and we became America's first black and white comedy team. And then there were no comedy clubs in those days. So we worked all black clubs in the North and the South of America, and also all white clubs, and paid dues like no other comedy team ever had to pay in their life. But it was a very exciting time. We wrote a book in 2005 called Tim and Tom, an American Comedy in Black and White, about what it was like touring the United States when there were race riots all over, not unlike the problems we're having today, but a lot of riots. And also there was social unrest, Vietnam War. I had just gotten out of service, and Vietnam War was raising students for protesting. Amidst all this turmoil, we were trying to make America laugh. Anywhere there was racial tension, we went there and didn't preach. We just do our act. We did 11 prisons in 1 year. We did colleges, high schools, and we stuck together for 6 years, and then we both went our separate ways.
Wow. And it's quite ironic, really, Tom, with all the unrest, as you say, that's going on at the moment around the world, but particularly in America. You know, do you think things have actually changed? Have we moved forward? You know, do you think we've actually learned from our lessons of the past?
Yeah, I do. I really do think sometimes the racial thing in America is overblown because it's turned into a political thing. You know, there's a strong socialist movement in America, and they want to. There's a thing about keeping us divided, divide and conquer. And if you can divide us by the races, it's even better. If you can divide us by the races, so there's a lot of political part of it, and it's a shame because it isn't as bad as they would want you to believe. And I believe after the election, a lot of it is going to go away one way or the other, you know.
Yes,
But
absolutely. Now, I've got to say, you've got an amazing backdrop there. So, I mean, you're with what you call this man the chairman of the board, don't you, Tom?
yeah,
So,
well, you know, this is Marcelo Nira from Buenos Aires is a great artist. And he also has an all-night radio show in Buenos Aires on Frank Sinatra music. And so he painted this every night when I work with Frank Sinatra, not when we work big coliseums, I would do my show and then there'd be an intermission and Frank would come out. But when we work Las Vegas or Atlantic City or Lake Tahoe or Reno, we work casinos. Whenever I'd finish my show, I'd say goodnight, everybody. And as I exited stage right, Frank would enter stage right. We would crisscross. He would then go to center stage and the people would be cheering like crazy. He was on, you know, and he at center stage, he'd say, Tommy, come back and take another bow. Tommy Dreesen, there he is, my main man. And when I would take what they call a half bow, I'd go halfway and I'd wave at him. And Marcelo captured this in a painting that's hanging in my living room now, but it's also a backdrop for whenever I do interviews with lovely folks like you.
it's wonderful. It truly is. Now, you know, your career has really spanned, as you say, many years, Tom. But for you, you started off, you know, how was it, you know, being the opening act for Frank Sinatra? And how did that come about? How did you meet Frank?
It was, you know, after the team split up, I ended up out in California, broke. That's what my book is all about. It's about this struggle, it's called Still Standing, of course, because I'm a stand-up comedian, but also because I've been knocked down so many times in my life. Knocked down, but I kept getting back up again. I kept getting back up again. When the team split up, I thought my life was over. I had never been on stage alone. My wife wanted me out of show business. She hated show business. My ex-wife, I can't remember her name. Oh yeah, I do. Plaintiff. That was her name. Anyhow, but she hated show business. She didn't want me in show business. So she thought I'd get a job in the factory and quit this dream. But I ended up in America in those days, in 1975, wherever you went in America, people say, what do you do for a living? You say, I'm a stand-up comedian. The next question was, oh yeah, you ever been on Johnny Carson? And if you hadn't been on Johnny Carson in America, the Tonight Show, you know, then in the eyes of America, you weren't a comedian. So he was in LA. So all the comedians across the land migrated out to the West Coast to a place called the Comedy Store, because it was a place where you could be seen. And the audition for the Comedy Store was even tougher than the Tonight Show, because there was comedians were just flocking from all over the world to get on at that Comedy Store. So that's what I did. I ended up out on the West Coast, left my wife and kids in Chicago for a while. I ended up broke. I thought I'd get discovered right away. I ended up broke. It was hitchhiking up and down Sunset Boulevard every night, begging to work for free at the Comedy Store. And I ended up sleeping in an old Nash Rambler, not my car. It was up on blocks, and the front seat came down. And I slept there for like 30 days, and I'd get up every morning, wash up at a gas station. I lived on $1 a day. Kentucky Colonel had a thing called corn and cluck for under $1. So you would get 2 pieces of chicken and a piece of corn, and that's how I survived. But I finally got on at the Comedy Store. I persevered, and then I took a year to really get the Tonight Show to come and see me, and I finally got them. And when I did my first appearance on the Tonight Show, my whole life changed. I had never stopped working since. I ended up doing 61 appearances on the Tonight Show. I did all these other talk shows. I did over 500 appearances on national television, but it all began with that first Tonight Show. And then Sammy Davis Jr. took me on the road for 3 years, all around the country. Now I'm Sammy Davis's opening act. But in the meantime, other singers wanted me to open for them because I could work clean. In those days, comics had to work clean to get on TV, but also if you were going to open for any star, usually their audiences were family audiences. So Gladys Knight and the Pips, Natalie Cole, Smokey Robinson, Tony Orlando and Dawn, James Darren, Frankie Avalon, after working with Sammy for 3 years, I'm touring with Smokey Robinson, and lo and behold, and Frank Sinatra's working next door at Harris. So I finished my show one night and I ran over to Harris Hotel to see Frank's show because I was a big fan. As I was running in the showroom, the vice president of Harris Hotel saw me and he said, "Tommy, come here, come here." And he was talking to a big guy with a cigar. And he said to me, "Tommy, this is Mickey Rubin." Well, I recognize the name. That's Frank Sinatra's lawyer. Powerful guy. So he said, "Mickey, this is Tom Dreesen, and I think Tom would make a great opening act for Frank Sinatra."
Oh,
And
wow.
the lawyer got a pained expression on his face like he heard that a million times. And he winked at the vice president, but I caught the wink. And he said, "Hey, kid, if I gave you a week with Frank, would you want more than 50,000? I said, "Mr. Rudin, put it this way. If you gave me a week with Frank, would you want more than 50,000? He said, "I like this kid." And they gave me 1 week with Frank at Atlantic City at the Golden Nugget. And I thought, great, I'll get my picture taken with him and hang it in every bar in Chicago. And on the second night, him and his wife took me out to dinner, and I can remember like it was yesterday. He put his knife and his fork down. He said, "I like your material and I like your style. I'd like you to do a few other dates with me if you're interested." And I didn't say, "Let me check my calendar." I said, "Yeah." And it turned into 14 years, 45, 50 cities a year, a friendship that I'll treasure forever, staying in his home 6 times a year. And at the end of his life, I was a pallbearer at his funeral, and I spoke at his funeral. And I miss him every day of my life.
Oh, he was such a lovely story, Tom. I mean, he was such a great man, and I mean, he's still loved so much, isn't he, around the world? I mean, he really has. He touched so many people's lives, and he continues to do so, of course, with his music. But was there any particular one song that you used to really, really love of his, Tom?
Well, when people ask me that, they'll say to me, what is your favorite Frank Sinatra song? I always say it depends what mood I'm in, because his music was a soundtrack of my life as well as other people's lives. You went steady to his music. When somebody loves you, it's no good unless they love you, all the way. And then you got married to his, Love and Mary's Love. You got divorced to his music. It's 2:45. There's no one in the place yet. You got remarried to his music. Love is lovelier the second time around. So his music was a soundtrack of your life. But touring with him, there were so many songs that he could just. One was "The House I Live In" and "What Is America to Me." That song would just bring the house down, But also at the end of his life, he had always closed with "New York, New York," because that was an up tune. But the song before that would be "My Way." And to be there, Monica, in the wings, watching this night after night. Now he's 77, 78, 79, and 80. And the lights would go down low. The audience would know this is getting near the end of the show. And he would be in a spot.
Wow.
And now the end is near. And though I face that final curtain, people would burst into tears in the audience. They would sob and, "We love you, Frank. We love you, Frank." To watch him sing that song was so moving because it was written specifically for him by Paul Anka, as you know. And no one should ever sing that song but him, because those lyrics, and not the words of one who kneels. The record shows I took the blows, but I did it my way. It was so moving and chilling when you would watch him sing that.
And it was a song, I think, I mean, that's obviously one of my favorites, as many people have the same, but it was one of those songs, I think, Tom, that it has stood the test of time, but also, as you say, I think it was incredibly ahead of its time at that time. The lyrics were very profound, and I think, I mean, you worked with him. Was there something so special about Frank that you noticed almost straight away? Did he have that special something that you'd never seen before?
Yeah, this guy, you would watch him walk out in front of 20,000 people in an arena. And he created more excitement walking to the microphone than most people did with their whole act. His appearance, I mean, if you were in a city, if we were in Omaha, Nebraska, Lincoln, Nebraska, if we were in Detroit, Michigan, Chicago, if we were in Bakersfield, California, wherever we were, the whole town was abuzz. Frank Sinatra's in town. Frank Sinatra's in town, And when you'd walk out into that arena, and when he'd walk out in that arena, the electricity, it was hard to describe the love his fans had for him. Now, you got to remember, not only did this man sell out, this man was, a lot of people are a star for 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. He was a star for well over 60 years. 60 years he was a star and sold out in Japan. And when he was 78 years old, sold out in Japan, sold out
incredible, really, isn't it? When you say that, I mean, that's just incredible. 78 and selling out still arenas across the world.
Across the world. And in Brazil at one time, 175,000 people came to see him. No one has ever came to see a single artist, that rock groups maybe, but not a single artist ever did. 175,000 people. His music was, again, the soundtrack of their lives. Now, forget about the fact that Frank Sinatra was the greatest pop singer of all time. That's not even an argument. What people forget the most about him was a brilliant actor. You know, this is a man, he won the Academy Award. One night I'm sitting with Gregory Peck at Frank's house, at Frank's compound down on Rancho Mirage. He stayed up till dawn. He never went to bed till the sun came up. Sitting around a table was Gregory Peck, Kirk Douglas, Clint Eastwood, Robert Wagner, Jack Lemmon, and they were talking film. And these are people I saw in the movies when I was a little boy. I'm sitting there just was so happy to be in this moment, you know, and I'm listening to them and they're talking about film and directing, but I noticed the reverence they were showing to Frank. And it just occurred to me, this is a pop singer. And I know he had done film and won the Academy Award and From Here to Eternity. And I'm an actor and I studied in Chicago and I studied in LA, and people always want to tell you who they studied with, you know, some big name or something. And I was just curious, who did Frank, I said to Frank, did you study acting? And Gregory Peck grabbed my arm real hard. He said, acting lessons would have ruined him. This was a diamond in the rough you didn't fool with. And from a learned actor like Gregory Peck.
Yes.
So when Frank Sinatra got a song, to him it was a script. What did the writer feel the night the writer took pen in hand? Frank would immerse himself in that lyric and become that lonely guy in the bar whose woman left him and he's never going to find love again. And you felt that. You felt every moment of that. Or the joy of a song, Come Fly With Me. You know, Charlton Heston said to watch Frank Sinatra sing a song is to watch a 4-minute movie.
And when he was on the stage, obviously he had an incredible stage presence. When he came off the stage, Tom, did he just kind of collapse? Did it, you know, because it like you, but I mean, you're a comedian, you're a stand-up comedian, you know how much it takes to be in front of that audience. I mean, you're just one man on the stage trying to make everybody roar with laughter. And for singers as well, it's the same. You have to capture that audience. So when he came off the stage, how was he then? Did he just want to retreat, or did he want to meet with everybody? How was he after that?
We bolted like the building was on fire, and we bolted wherever we were, either the private jet to the next city, and then we stayed up till dawn. He loved to hang out. He loved to hang out till dawn and keep that high going. You know, he'd had a little Jack Daniels, Jack and a Splash, and you know, and then keep the evening going, having fun, telling stories. He was a hangout guy, like I am too. I love to hang out. But I want to explain something to you, Monica. You're saying to me, you know, about opening for Frank Sinatra. This is what it was like opening for Frank Sinatra in front of 20,000 people all over the country, huge arenas. I say to you, Monica, it's time to go on. There's 5 minutes. You're going on in 5 minutes, Monica. There's 20,000 people out there. And you've got to go on, Monica, and stand in the middle of them. They're all around you, all around, 20,000 people. Monica, I want you to go out there, and for the next 45 minutes, I want you to stand in the center of that arena and hold their attention, 20,000 people. Oh, one more thing, Monica. I want you to hold their attention, but I want you to make them laugh for 45 minutes. Oh, one more thing, Monica. I want you to hold their attention and make them laugh, but I want you to make them laugh when you want them to laugh. I want you to pull the strings on the emotions of 20,000 people. No props, no tricks, no charts, no special arrangement, no special orchestra, no special lighting, just you and 20,000 people. And one more thing, Monica, not one of them came to see you. That's your assignment. That's what I had to do.
I was going to say that's what you had to do. But Tom, I've always felt, you know, with any stand-up comedian, and you know, but I've looked at your work, I've seen what you do. It is incredible how you did exactly that, though. You held the audience. You continue to hold an audience. Is that something? Do you get stage fright when you first step on the stage? How do you feel when you're just about to go out on stage?
Well, by the way, every new comedian does when you're brand new. Oh my God, this is, you know, first of all, let me digress. Insurance companies did a survey around the world one time for 8 years of the 10 fears of man. Death was fourth, pain was second, getting up in front of an audience was the #1 fear of mankind. You know, So if you can get up in front of an audience and talk about house painting or a lawyer or being a talk show host, if you can talk in front of an audience for an hour on that subject, you're less than 1% of the population of the world. If you can get up and make people laugh for an hour, you're in 1/1,000,000th of 1% of the population of the world. You know, so everybody who starts out doesn't always start out that, you know, because it's a strange feeling getting up in front of an audience the first time. So like anybody else, I had to learn to work to get comfortable up there.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Now,
And with your material, did you just did your material evolve? How, you know, I know that comedians are very protective about their material, and you said that in your book, you know, the times were that you never repeat anybody's other jokes, you know, it was kind of your precious thing. Whereas nowadays it's completely different, isn't it, for comedians? They tend to steal a little bit of each other's, you know, work. And for you, when you were writing, was it just everyday life things that made you want to write, or was there anything in particular that you took and thought, oh yeah, I'm going to talk about this subject, or was it just everyday life things
well,
that make you laugh?
yeah, you start out like anybody else, emulating maybe another comedian. You saw another comedian. Well, I kind of like that style, and so when you go on stage, most new comedians, I can look at them and say, oh, he likes David Letterman, or he likes Jay Leno, or he likes Jerry Seinfeld, or whatever. You know, you can see who, but most new comedians, they emulate another comedian. They're actually doing like an impression of another comedian. And then as time goes by, you let a little bit of you out one night. And if it doesn't get a laugh, you go back into doing this impression. But one night, maybe you just ad-lib something and you get a laugh. And you let a little bit more of you out. And pretty soon you start to evolve, and then you become you on stage. And that's who you're supposed to be. There's never been anyone like you ever before on this planet. No one's had your same mom and dad, your same experiences. So you're as unique as a snowflake. You know, so that's what you start to evolve. In the beginning, you write material. I always tell young comedians, the first 8-10 minutes should be about you. When you walk out on stage, if I don't know, when you're a star, you can walk out and tell me about the government or the airlines or whatever you want, because people all came to see you. So you can walk out, your first joke can be whatever. But when you're new, I want to know who you are. So when you come out, tell me, so I know where your accent's from. Oh, you're from Chicago. You had 8 brothers and sisters. You lived in a shack. You were very poor. You went to Catholic school. You shined shoes in taverns. After 8 or 10 minutes of funny stories, and you leave the stage, they say, oh, wasn't he funny? And you know, he's from Chicago and he had 8 brothers and sisters, and he went to Catholic school or whatever. You left part of you out there. So your earlier material should all be about you and your background. And then you can evolve from there. As time goes by, you get a little more sophisticated on what works. I can teach you so much about stand-up comedy. I can teach you about how to write a joke structures. I can teach you a lot. Stage presence, mic technique. I cannot teach you timing. You either have it or you don't.
Yeah, actually, that was going to be one of my questions, Tom. Do you feel that, can you become a comedian, or is it just something naturally that comes very easy to you? I mean, can you practice and practice and practice to become a comedian? Or do you feel that, you know, you're just born like that and you're born to make people laugh almost?
Yeah, I think you can technically become a comedian. I've seen comedians that are technically very good, but there's some people that are innately, they just know where that laughter's at. If you dissect comedy, it usually gets boring, but I'm going to try to explain to you what timing is about. And the comedian that instinctively has this. Let's just say there's a big pond of water there and you have a rock, and you throw the rock as high as you can in the air and pretend that rock is laughter. Now the rock goes up as high as it can, and then it slowly starts coming down, and it'll hit the pond, and then it ripples across the pond. If that's laughter, you never move when that thing is on its way up. Never. You know, some nights when I'm out there, it's always when it's on its way down. Some nights when it's coming down just a little bit, I move. Some nights when it's halfway down, I move. Some nights I let it hit the pond. And some nights I let it hit the pond and go all the way across the pond before I move. I can't tell you before I go out there what I'm going to do. If I was going to do 30 minutes tonight at the Laugh Factory here in Hollywood, and with 30 minutes of material, if I did that 30 minutes of material in front of 150 people, if I did that same exact routine the next night opening for Frank Sinatra in front of 20,000 people, it took on a whole different dynamic. Because now the laughter is larger, so your brain knows when to move on the next line. And that's the gift you're born with. You know, when you learn that, and you can get that audience in sync with you, you knowing when to move on each line. It's a magic that's hard to describe. It's comedy is the highest of highs and the lowest of lows,
Is there any comedian now, Tom, that you look at and you kind of think that guy is really special? Any either American or English, or what do you think actually about our English comedians?
Oh, I mean, I've always loved them. They used to compare me. Oh God, why did I forget his name? They used to compare me because I did a lot of Catholic school material. Oh, what's the comedian with one finger in England for years?
No, who was that? We'll think about it.
Yeah,
Whatever I was thinking.
He did Catholic school material a lot. Mm-hmm. He was a real funny guy.
Oh, yeah. Dave Allen.
Dave Allen.
An amazing comedian. Yeah, one of my favorites.
They used to compare me to him a lot when I went to London.
Yes, I can see that. Yeah, yes, I can see that, and because I think he was very satirical. He was very kind of, you would laugh. In fact, you would laugh so much with Dave Allen that you would miss his jokes because you were still laughing at the joke that he just told a few moments before. But he had that incredible ability. But Tom, you're the same. I've seen your work. I've seen your videos. I haven't had the pleasure of seeing you live, but you kind of engage with your audience, and I guess that comes with experience as well, of course. But the way that you engage with your audience, you really reel your audience in, so they're kind of almost hanging on your every word, and that's, for me, from an audience perspective, that's a true gift.
Well, I always say it's a conversation, not a presentation.
Yeah,
is it your act?
That's a good way to describe it. Yeah.
Is it your act? You damn right it's your act. It's your job to make it look like it's not your act. And so what I always tell young comedians, pretend you're walking out in your living room. If you're a guy, or if you're a guy, and pretend that your wife says, look, honey, there's 25 people in our living room. Dinner's not going to be ready for 15, 20 minutes. Go out there and tell them some of those funny stories that you tell all the time. And so you when you walk out on stage, it's like walking out in your living room and say, dinner's going to be ready in a few minutes. But I got to tell you what happened to me today. I'm shopping at the store, and it's a conversation that you begin. But I want to go back to English. I loved Monty Python. That was just blew me away. Not only that, the greatest sitcom ever written, ever in the history of mankind, is Fawlty Towers.
Yes.
The greatest sitcom ever written. I mean, I've got it here. I've got the tapes here. And they only did, I think, 13 episodes. They only did one season.
There wasn't very many. Yeah.
Yeah. But there's a rule in sitcom. Show me a man in trouble, and I'll show you a funny man. Show me a man in trouble. That's when you're writing a sitcom. Any comedy writers out there, if you're brand new, show me a person in trouble, and I'll show you a funny person. Basil Fawlty, at the beginning of every show, he started to get into a little bit of trouble. And by the end of the show, it was chaos. It was absolute chaos. And it all started at me, and he got in a little bit of trouble, And anyhow, I still show those episodes and just roar, and I know what's coming,
Yeah. That's it. But it is one of those programs. I mean, over here in the UK, it's repeated often because it's one of those programs. Doesn't matter how old you are or have you seen it, a million times, it doesn't matter. It will still make you laugh. And that is a gift, isn't it? That's a gift. And I mean, for you, Tom, you decided to write this book, and I've got it here, as you say, Still Standing. It's a beautiful book. There we go. Available on Amazon and other stores, of course. But, when you wrote this book, Tom, first of all, what made you decide to write a book? Was it just something that you decided to do and thought, it's about time I get all my memories out there? Were you asked to, or was it something you personally wanted to do?
No, I grew up so poor. I had 8 brothers and sisters, as I said earlier. We lived in a shack. A rat-infested, roach-infested shack. If I had holes in my shoes, we put cardboard in it. If a window broke, you stuck a rag in it. I would take my shoe shine box and I would go to the neighborhood. There were a lot of factories and steel mills where I grew up at, and there were taverns, saloons. Yes. And I shined shoes in all those taverns and to help feed my brothers and sisters. I came from the poorest of poor. While I'm on my hands and knees in these bars shining shoes, Frank Sinatra's on the jukebox singing. And years later, I'm flying all over the world in this private jet with him. And not only him, even before that, the struggles, the black-white comedy team. I knew that I was on a journey that whenever something poignant happened, I would go back to my room and I'd write it down, or something funny happened, something profound happened. And I was journaling this because I knew that one day I wanted to let every kid who had alcoholic parents, who grew up poor, raggedy clothes, that your dreams can come true. You know, I was a high school dropout. I went in the Navy when I was 17 years old, but I got a high school diploma from the Navy, and I read every positive mental attitude book I could find. Norman Vincent Peale, The Power of Positive Thinking, A Guide to Confident Living, W. Clement Stone, you know, the Think and Grow Rich books, the Positive Mental Attitude. I read hundreds of them. And today I give motivation speeches at universities and for corporate America. I'm a comedian always. I'm a stand-up comedian, but I love giving motivation speeches on 4 subjects: perception, visualization, self-talk, and develop a sense of humor. And I elaborate on those 4 subjects. So, but I wanted to write the book because I wanted to just give hope. I wanted to be triumphant. And because my life, I've been knocked down physically. In show business, you're going to be rejected more than you'll ever dream. So I was knocked down that way, but I was knocked down physically in my life, and I got back up, you know. And I just wanted that if people would read the book, they would say, God, if he can do it, I can do it. You know what I mean? If this little scrawny kid from the south side of Chicago can keep getting back up, I can get back up too, you know. And that's what I wanted them to take away.
It is. I mean, it's a real inspirational story, and that's great. So really then, Tom, you use kind of all your entries, all your journals, you know, your diaries, just your scribblings, and you kept them for all those years, and then you've kind of adapted those and made it into a book.
Yeah, it would happen. I'd already had it written, but 2 guys got a hold of me, Darren Grubb, they're on the book, and John Russo, and they called me and said, Mr. Dreesen, got me in a conference call. We want to write a book about your life. We think that your life is very interesting and so forth and so on. We're fans. And I said, I'll be honest with you, I've already written that book and I've got it all written, you know, but I would need help with structure and things like that I wasn't familiar with. And so they collaborated with me. But I told them up front, I said, I don't want to ever put a book out there that I would say later, oh, I didn't say that, you know. So those are my words. I want all to be my words. And they are. And the guys just helped me. They were very clever at. I'd send them chapter 1, and they'd read it, and they'd say, "That's great." And then finally they'd say in chapter 3, "Can we take this one line out and put it in chapter 14?" They knew how to keep the narrative, you know, keep people interested. And so we collaborated to a book that's getting, thank you God, rave reviews on Amazon.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about the book I loved, Tom, is it's very raw. You know, it's very honest. You've kind of opened up, and there really isn't anything you haven't told us about. I mean, you had cancer, of course, you know, and you talked about that in the book. You've talked about your struggles when you were, you know, very poor. You talked about, you know, the wonderful highlights of your career, and you kind of ended on a, you know, you're still going, aren't you? There's still more to come from Tom Dreesen.
Yeah, well, I'm a fighter. I didn't tell them about you and I, Monica.
Well, you know, we don't want to tell everybody about everything, you know. We like to keep some things private, Tom. I mean, you know, there's nobody here. It's just you and me. I mean, I wish more than anything that I was interviewing you, you know, in a studio in Los Angeles, or you were here in the UK. You know, these are very strange times, aren't they, Tom? And it's a. Do you feel that the pandemic, and it's affected businesses? It's certainly affected the musical venues around the world, theatres, places where you would go and perform. Do you feel that we can come through this? You know, do you think people are desperate now? I mean, certainly in the UK, we're desperate to go to, you know, to come and see you, to go to see a stand-up comedian, to go and see a musical, whatever, you know. But do you think that's going to come?
I do, but it's going to take a while. And I tell you what, and I'm a positive mental attitude thinker.
Yes, me too.
I'm always motivating people. We can do this. But the world has become OCD. And if they found the vaccine tomorrow that could knock out COVID-19, 50% of people in the United States won't take a flu shot. they're afraid of vaccines for whatever reason.
Yes.
So that's not going to guarantee they're going to take the COVID vaccine. But the other thing is they've now become OCD. When you go to a comedy club or a comedy room or whatever, a singer, a juggler, whatever, any performer, what our energy, what my comedy, I've got, it's energy. I got to send it out all the way through the audience. People are sitting shoulder to shoulder for a reason. We got to send it out like an electrical current all the way through the audience and back up to me, and then back out through the audience and back up to me. And it becomes like an electrical current. And that's how you set your timing and your rhythm and you get them going. If you tell the people 5 sit over here, 4 over there, 6 in the back, you just took a scissors and cut that electrical current that we need desperately to get this magic going. Now, not only that, but on Broadway, you need people shoulder to shoulder because you need a sellout house to pay the rent.
Yes.
So when you diminish that room, it's impossible for them to make the money that they need to pay for it. So let's just say you're going to get, I'll give you a good example. A friend of mine told me in Oklahoma, they tried to have some comedy there about 2 weeks ago, and they had a big crowd, and people were coming in.
Yeah.
And he said, and all of a sudden, in the middle of the show, some guy coughed and sneezed, and the room emptied.
No.
So I mean, the paranoia, poor guy.
Yeah, it's the same here though, Tommy. If we see anybody, if you're on a tube or you're just on a bus or wherever, even in the street, if someone coughs, you kind of immediately, and you kind of move away very, very quickly. I think certainly it's going to affect people's mental health, and I'm sure it's the same, in America. I think you need to be extremely positive to come through this, and we will get through it. We will. It's just at the moment it's the unknown, isn't it? We don't know when we can go to come and see you, for example. We don't know when you can come over here. I've been very lucky and traveled to Los Angeles many times, and I'm missing that travel. I'm missing seeing, the meeting people and seeing new things. And it's kind of, we've all been kind of like, no, we've got to stay still. And we understand why, and it's really important that we do. But long term, if it continues, I think it's going to have quite a profound effect on people.
Yeah, it is. And the only thing that, my mother used to always sing this song, look for the silver lining.
Yes.
And me being a motivation speaker, I tell people, okay, every time I've ever been knocked down, I always say, what can I learn from this? What can I learn from this? And this is no different. And I think what we're learning all around the world is we always thought we loved our family and we always thought we loved our friends, but now we know we really love our family. Yes. And we really love our friends. Now we know how we took for granted. Monica, you're in town, let's have dinner at such, we took that for granted. Well, we're going to go over here, nice crowded restaurant. We took that for granted. We won't take that for granted again.
We've kind of, certainly here, we've lost that. Well, certainly for me, it's the material things that are so unimportant. They're nothing compared, as you say, to your family and friends, and it's changed their whole outlook, isn't it? And I think that, moving forward, Tom, I mean, what are your plans, Tom? Did you have any kind of tours lined up, and of course all got cancelled because of the COVID?
Right now, I'm supposed to be on a book tour right now. But here's the irony.
Because here it is. We'll just give them another quick look. Da, 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 da.
Yeah, I'm supposed to be on the tour. But however, here's the interesting thing, Monica. So I've looked for the positive. I say, wait a minute, I should be out on a book tour right now. And I'd be going from city to city to city, hopping in and out of airplanes, going to a bookstore, maybe sell 25, 30 books, sign autographs. But now, the other day in New Hampshire, the bookstore came to me. Just like I'm talking to you now.
Oh, fantastic. Did you do like a Zoom call?
Yes. He with his Zoom, he had 30 of his customers in the store, and they bought books from me, and people I interviewed, and he, not only that, he went on his computer and he got all of his customers that he could to come to the store. But he also put a little small ad in the paper and said, comedian Tom Dreesen is going to be talking to you. So he wanted new customers to come to his store, and that succeeded. And so what I did, I sold those books from my home, and then I've got little book plates that I can sign an autograph to. He gave me the names, and I sent to Cheryl, to Monica, to, hope you enjoyed the book or whatever, and I sent that in the envelope the next day. So now my point is, I can do the book tour here in my house right now.
We're learning, aren't we? We're adapting. We really are. So Tom, where are we going to see you next, do you think? Have you kind of got anything planned maybe for next year? Or
Yeah,
are you just kind of leaving things at the moment and seeing how things are?
well, kind of like that. A lot of the acts that draw big, much bigger than me, they draw 3,500 and 4,000. Jerry Seinfeld, people like that. They're not even booking 2021. I heard they're booking 2022. So I think people are just laying back. Venues, they don't know what's going to be open, what's not. Everybody's up for grabs. I think we somehow have to reinvent ourselves. We as comedians, somehow we got to figure out a way to bring our laughter to the audiences. Through this computer. The hardest part is that delay. We can't hear your laughter. And if we can't hear your laughter, we can't set our timing. So it can be somewhat awkward,
Yeah, I can imagine. And it's the same when we've had a couple of, musical events here and, a couple of, smaller gatherings. And it's been really difficult because, like you say, the social distancing aspect, people are quite fearful of it still. So people aren't going to relax, are they? So they're going to be listening to you, but half of their brain is also going to be thinking, oh, is that guy down, 2 rows down from me coughing, or what's that person doing? So we're not fully focused, aren't we? And the whole point of when you come out to see particularly a stand-up comedian is that you're coming out to have a really good time and have a good laugh. So it's as you say, it's that kind of, you're missing that engagement, aren't you? You're missing that kind of feel that you have for an audience, because there is a feel. Do you have that, Tom? When you go out to different audiences, you must feel the vibe, the kind of, I don't know what you call it really, but the audiences can vary, can't they, from state to state? So you must kind of feel what they're like, whether they're going to like you or they're a bit anti you, or does that still occur with you?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I've been doing it so long. It's like I know I can go out there in the first couple of jokes, say, oh, this is a hot crowd, or, oh, I got to go to work on this one. But when you think about what you're asking people to do, the people are saying social distancing because why? Well, they say fluids can travel 6 feet. Is that what they're saying?
Yes, that's right. Yes.
Okay, right. So now you're going to go sit down, you and your boyfriend, or you and your husband, and you sit down next to a nice couple and you smile at them and wave. And the guy next to you goes, ha, 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 ha. So
you'd be dark.
Yeah,
it's true. I hadn't thought about that actually, but it's true. You would
laugh, yeah.
It's true. Well, Tom, it's been an absolute pleasure to speak to you. Thank you so much for joining me. It really has. And as I say, people can buy your book online from Amazon. And, this is a really, really good read. So I'd recommend for anybody to go out and have a look at it. It really is a very raw and honest account of your life, Tom. And for that, I think it's great. And it's no wonder it's becoming a bestseller. Well, it is a bestseller with Amazon. So you must be very proud. But thank you so much, and lots of love and best wishes to you and your family. And we'll speak again soon.
Thank you too, Monica. And I pray that one day I can get back over to England.
I was going to say, when you come over to England, we'll do it properly in the studio. It'd be so wonderful just to meet you in person.
I'd like that very much.
Lovely.
And I'll bring my buddy Vinnie Jones, and he can.
Oh yes, he's here. We'll have an interview with both of you. That'll be wonderful.
Good. Okay.
Take care.
Take
Take care now. God bless.
Bye bye. Bye bye.